you would say how you got into fitness and why this became so important to you.
Yeah, that's always a great kickoff. So I am 32 years old. I'm living on the East Coast now, born and raised San Diego. So I grew up playing sports my whole life. I like health and fitness naturally and people. And for me, I thought I was going to do sales growing up. I was going to go to college for, business, study that, follow my dad's path in the food sales industry because I saw all the relationships he had. But, being an athlete my whole life, I played college softball in San Diego. So for me, I learned that, I really like people and teams and team culture. But for me, fitness and helping others was my vehicle to work more with people in a more fun way instead of what I thought was going to be food sales or maybe like tech device or med device. So I kind of just fell into it. I got my feet wet with some B2B outside sales, lots of cold calling. Did not like that, but I was working for Staples. So if you've seen The Office, I was selling paper and slinging that as my number one product. So, um, yeah, I realized I am going to just jump full into coaching. I didn't have any formal certifications. I just knew I did a lot of diving into my education as more as like the specifics goes with the science, nutrition, fitness, functional health. But, long story short, I just help people with the basics of more movement. How can you just start better eating habits, some behavior change. And really, it was just being good at helping people, get the first 5 steps going. So it's a lot has transpired since then.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's focus on that for a second, if you will, right? So I know you and I are both very big on behavior change. And that is, you made a story the other day that really caught my attention, and it prompted me to make a post about it too. So you were inspiring me. And the thing is, there are oftentimes, I know you've seen this in your career, people get so overwhelmed with where to start. And they get often paralysis by analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to do this? Do I need to work out 5 times a week? What's the perfect workout? What's the perfect diet? What's this? And then they end up doing nothing or trying to take on too much and then burning out. So when you're working with somebody, what are your first steps to get them started to keep it simple?
So, I mean, it helps to know context of the person. I really like to know my people super well. Like, what are you doing from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep and about your personal life?
Mm-hmm.
So then I do what makes the most sense for you and realistically without the most difficulty. So it might be more lifestyle based and like, hey, why don't we just focus on what you're kind of doing in the morning? And some tips maybe around the afternoon and the evening. And it could be food related, it could be movement related. It's just going to make the most sense for them in their life. But I know all kinds of things that can help them, sure, but it's whatever they're going to be able to stick to. So a lot of people call it the low hanging fruit. And it's just what's going to move the needle for you and getting you feeling better first, because that's really what everyone's after is just trying to feel better. And it could be food related, it could be movement related. It just depends on the person. And we'll stick with like those first few things, maybe the first only like a couple weeks, really.
I think that's an amazing point, because so often we see people on the internet and people's family and friends that have the best intention. I'm gonna give people that on the internet the benefit of the doubt and say they have the best intention. We'll leave that there. But they say, well, you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do this. And you make such a beautiful point. It's so individual and
Mm-hmm.
everybody matters. When I'm working with somebody, I want to know what sports their kids play, what their kids' names are, what their husband does. So we can paint a whole picture of their life, because odds are health and fitness are probably not their number one priority. They're probably way down on the list after family and friends and all of those other things. And yet it seems they try to make it like number one or number two, and that's just not going to sustain for most folks.
Right.
So your post that you did, your story was about blood work and all those things. And I know you have a really cool, exciting, move coming, which I do want you to be able to tell people about and tell them who you're going to be working with, as you can see my shirt. So,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So that wasn't on purpose at all, right? So, you said with blood work that to do these ground things first. And I coach the exact same way. Why is it that you want to see people get those things done first before we ever want to see the blood work or the gut test or the hormone panel?
Right. I love this question too because I play devil's advocate. I love both sides of this because they're
Mhm.
both equal. But if you're in a good financial spot and you can, invest in that, cool. You know, great. Let's do all the testing if you want in that case. But it is overwhelming usually for the general person. They don't go and study all these, factors and markers, and it's very overwhelming. So to go and do that, financially, you do have to invest in yourself. But you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the bloods back and they're not going to be perfect. There's going to be things to work on, and it's usually going to be lifestyle and nutrition focused. And it's no surprise there. So it's kind of like confirmation of things you should already be doing. And I don't want to say ever it's a waste in your time and money because it's still feedback on your health. It still gives you something, but chances are you probably already need to focus on some big rocks, like I call them. So it's just if you're someone who likes lists, great, and you can get the numbers back and you like the analytic sides of things, it's fun. But knowing who you are, I think, as a person, and what your constraints are, what you're struggling with, and being realistic with what you've already tried to achieve your fitness goals, that's where it kind of makes the most sense. So really it's like, cool, you go and get your blood work done, but it's going to tell you things you should already be doing. But then there are, of course, specifics where if you really are struggling, you do have some serious health concerns, okay, then let's take a look at that. But better sleep, better foods, a little bit more movement. It's not usually going to be anything monumental like when we're first starting out. So that's why I like to say, hey, are you doing these things first?
Keep the first things first. And again, how would this look if it was simple, right? And I love that you make that point. It's not this or that. It's just how do these work together, or how can these work together? And so many of those things, you know, we know, okay, well, if my cholesterol's off, if these things are off, if my insulin, if my blood sugar, fasting blood sugar, glucose is too high, and we're already, let's say, carrying some extra body fat, we know typically speaking, the fastest way to get those back in line is to drop that excess body fat. So we're back to the starting
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Or with the way that I coach, like I have people all the time, well, can I go to Geneva Diagnostics, get my gut health testing done, stuff like that? We don't, we need to establish a baseline first. And if you're living a lifestyle where you're drinking multiple times a week, where we're not getting adequate rest, where we're eating highly processed foods constantly and eating out, your testing is going to be off. That's not a true baseline.
Right. Yep.
So if somebody wanted to, and I know you've already alluded to this, find a nice, good baseline, like when, and obviously each person is very different. What would you say in regards, because people do like generalized ideas when it comes to water, right? Like what might that look like for somebody? And please do touch on this because there are a lot of people out there pushing that people need salt all the time in all their
Right.
water, which I just, but if you could touch on the water, what might sleep look like? A lot of people are using wrist wearables to monitor their sleep, and why that may or may not be why that may or may not be a great idea from the wrist standpoint, the hand standpoint. Um, and what does just basically it, when you're working with somebody, what does a standard balanced diet look like? If somebody just wanted to go, I want to get a simple snapshot of what a balanced diet might
Yeah,
look like, what would you tell
right.
somebody?
And I will say, first and foremost, like to preface everything with just finding a baseline. I always like ask, how are you feeling on a basis, like daily basis, like mood, energy levels, digestion, and one of my where I learned this actually is Sam Miller, the shreds: sleep, hunger, recovery, energy, digestion, stress, and movement. So starting there, and we kind of go through like a 0 through 10 just to like rate things, and that way I can say, okay, cool, so this is where this falls, and then from there we can give the basics. So with water, you know, this is where the internet really screws people, and like there's so many fancy things now, but honestly, it's chances are it's nothing new, it's not new information. A lot of my clients have either Stanley cups or hydro flasks, and I'll be like, cool. So for a marker, just like roughly, why don't you try to start with like drinking 3 of those a day instead of being really fancy? I give them like normal lifestyle, like applicable things. So,
Mhm.
80 plus ounces of water. This looks like this many hydro flasks or Stanley cups. And same thing with the eating. It's really, people just overcomplicate it. You're not going to see anything crazy new information, science, but other than the fact, like more real whole foods. Honestly, I tell my girls, did you include vegetables like in each meal of the day? And did you have, a cup of berries for the day? That's like the most baseline thing with my girls, that they really aren't already doing those things. That's why it works well for them. They notice feeling better within days. And then it's like, okay, are you actually having some other serious issues with your gut? And then that's where everything's individualized, like you said. But let's just start literally with breakfast, lunch, and dinner and going from there. Um, People, I think, are hoping and wanting to hear something new or something that makes them special to change, that, oh, that's why I'm not seeing results in fat loss. Oh, this is why. And they want a reason, which, we want something to pin it on, but it's really not going to be anything you probably haven't heard. It's just the support and helping them be consistent with it, really.
Think yes to everything you said. We could literally clip that up, put it out there. It would get no views because it's not groundbreaking. But you touched on something that I found in my 16 years in this is we're often looking for that magic pill, and we're looking for that magic answer. And in reality, the magic pill is the hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we often hear, I've tried everything. When I hear that very often, I think, so what have you stuck to consistently then?
Right. And that's the one that hurts the most, usually, to ask and answer truthfully.
I mean, to be fair, I don't want to answer that. Like, are you kidding me? So we're real people too, and we all struggle in certain areas of our lives. Like health and fitness may be one where we excel, but it may be somebody's, investing or spending or whatever it may be. So we need to make that, like, in no way, shape, or form is anybody I'm ever going to have on this like on a live, going to try to like be condescending toward anybody, because we're all struggling in some
Right.
way. Um, and so I just feel like that needs to be said, because in this world of health and fitness, there are so many people that just get this prima donna almost attitude. And it's like, no, bro, like you stink at life in some
Yeah.
way. I guarantee it.
Right.
Like I promise.
The world would be a different place if all health professionals were doing the things that they should and need to be doing.
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of them, the health professionals would go away,
I know,
because then they wouldn't be telling us not to eat broccoli, or that oatmeal's killing us, or that you need more salt.
right.
Like false.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason I have these words behind me to remind me that self-control, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, kindness, patience, like there's a reason those are on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, um, But so with that being said, I want to touch on one that I found a lot of my females clients would struggle with over the years, and that is obviously vegetables and fruits. I'm here for it all day. What about protein?
Yeah, that's always like the big one. I actually was just talking to one of my best friends that I have my girlfriends text me too on a regular basis with some little questions, and it's really simple things like that where just simply eating a little more protein in each of your meals. You might already think you're doing a good job. Chances are probably not. I know I have to be pretty intentional with keeping up my own protein intake so that I don't lose muscle mass, which, especially as a woman, you don't want to have that happen, really, men and women, as you age. But that's a big one. And also helping them stay fuller longer. So I have a lot of girlfriends that and I will do this too. I will turn into a trash panda raccoon at night. I'm so hungry and I don't care. I'll eat anything that I can get my hands on. And that's because you underate during the day. So chances are you could eat more protein.
I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know that you calling yourself a trash panda is getting clipped up and put on the internet. I'm not. But it is so true. Just even in client calls every week. Why am I craving sugar at night? Why am I craving sugar? Why am I so hungry at night? And if protein helps, it's not maybe not the answer, but it does help or
Yes.
can often. I'm not going to say it does, but it can.
Yeah.
Um, and so why is it? I need a minute. I need a minute. Um, why is it that muscle not atrophying, not losing that muscle, and we will focus on women for right now. It is so important, especially as women age. Why is that so important for them?
Yeah, so I mean, for us as women, we already start to have muscle declining. I think it's really in our 30s, and each year as it goes on, it's you're more susceptible to injury, and especially as you get older too, if you're not strong, you'll fall down. And women also biologically, we do not carry as much as men, so we have to be more mindful of that. And especially with old age, just little things. I mean, slips and falls. Even now, you might be clumsy, but as you get older, you're going to be paying the price way harder if you do get an injury. So women have to be extra conscious with your muscle mass, and also helping with that is the protein. So that is one big piece of the puzzle. And really, protein, the way you eat it without being too sciencey, that's what makes up our body. So the same profiling. So you got to keep up with it, and that's just where you're doing yourself really a longevity, anti-aging favor. You're not just it's not just for fat loss, right? So
And because we do so often focus on, we hear females so often say, my metabolism is dropping. It's well, we know that typically speaking, that metabolism doesn't drop when exercise, protein are equated till about 60. So why is that muscle so important in regards to metabolism? And you said a great word that you don't hear a lot of people say, and I love that you said it, which is longevity. Why is that so important for that?
yeah, it was just cutting out a tiny bit, but with our metabolism and the more muscle we can hold on to, the better. And also, I mean, you burn more with more lean muscle mass on you at rest, so people don't have to worry as much about constantly working out or eating less. Um, I forget my train of thought because I was thinking and then this was cutting out. But our metabolism, the more we eat, obviously it's the dream of I want to be able to eat more without gaining weight, right? And that's why men can often get away with a lot. All my females always complain, it's not fair. I can eat and take a look at a cheeseburger and then I gain weight and he doesn't. And again, that's where it's because they have more muscle mass, they can burn more, get away with more. So therefore, women are like, man, why? Like, it's just not fair every time. I hear this like usually once a week. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and it's interesting. I have a clip coming up, not here. It'll probably get delayed after said Trash Panda video, but where I wish that more men would train like women in the regard that I wish they would hit their legs more often
Yeah,
and do a little bit of cardio.
right,
Um, and I wish more women would train like men in the regards that they prioritize protein and slow down often in between their
right.
sets. And, and understood that the workout does not need to be how many calories did I burn today? Well, that's not going to tell
Yeah,
you. It's probably not accurate.
100%. Yeah. And I honestly think like women just, it's still, I don't know what it is too, a lot in the kind of influencer space slash women's wellness. I'm seeing a lot of women actually are, it's like trending right now, strength training. And I think they're actually starting to catch on now with, oh, this is really important for me, but like from a, it's kind of like a beauty longevity standpoint, which, you know, fine, be motivated for that. That works, whatever gets the job done. But women are catching on now that they actually do need to strength train if they want to look good and feel good for the longest time possible. And you really have to work really hard to accidentally get, you know, too muscular. So I tell my girls, I'm like, man, that's like honestly, that is disrespectful to the guys and gals that are bodybuilders. Like you have to work really hard. So now I think women are actually catching on. It's this trend, I swear, it's really cool. But um, lean muscle is the way to go if you're trying to live long, well, and honestly still be sexy. So
And as a man, I want to say that, you know, I fully support any lady in my life that wants to be sexy and it's not in my life. Like, hey, go for it. I want y'all to be happy and confident and proud and sexy and all of those things. And I say that in the non-creepiest way humanly possible. Um, but it is so funny because they're like, I don't want to look like you. You're not. You're not.
mhm.
I eat 4,000 calories a day, and can become a chore
Right.
at like 4,300. It's basically like saying I don't want to be bulky. It's kind of like saying I drive a Kia Soul, and I don't want to be a NASCAR driver. Like you're not.
Yeah,
It's okay. You're
that's
in a Kia Soul.
a great analogy. Yeah.
Like, and to those folks that said, well, I have gotten bulky in the past. The only way to do that is the same way it's how to do it for me is to eat far too much.
Right. Yeah. That's
Um, um,
too with
Go ahead.
I'd say that's one of the hardest things too with women is actually getting them to eat more. It's psychologically that's scary. So
It is. Just had that conversation this morning with somebody that said, I hate feeling full. So, what would you
yeah,
tell a client that says, I hate feeling full, but is struggling to get over like 1,100 calories?
right. That's also tough too, depending on the background of the client.
Mhm.
Obviously, if there are some pretty serious, you know, if ever an eating disorder occurred, that's still maybe, you know, relating back to that, super individualized. But I
Mhm.
obviously through a little, you know, like how did you feel earlier in the day? What does eating and feeling full actually feel like? Let's talk about like what else you ate in the day. How did you feel throughout the day? So I try to revisit some other feelings around meals and such. Um, but it depends. That could be like a whole in it of itself other topic. But
Yes, it could.
yeah, definitely try to validate and explain a little bit, but ask questions and understand them because feeling full can mean something very different to I think a lot of people.
Perfectly said. Like truly perfectly said. I feel like if we were going to go down that rabbit hole, we'd need to pull Victoria Whittington in. We'd need to pull a
Yeah,
registered dietitian. She was so excited we were going live today. We would need to pull in a licensed therapist. Like we're going to need to pull in like 8 people for that
but
conversation.
Victoria is definitely a
Uh,
whole for that.
yeah, she's so good. She's so good, and just one of the best people I've encountered in a long time.
Right.
Truly. So, with that being said, ripple effects. You've touched on those just naturally. We kind of got there. But what are some other just great effects that people might start feeling when I'm going to hit on this one since we've been talking a lot specifically to women, maybe increase their carbohydrates because that tends to be a sticking point very often.
Yeah.
What might be that ripple effect? Because that often leads into why people are turning into trash pandas at night. No, I'm not letting that go.
I know. No, I fully own it. I know what it's like. Really hungry and I didn't eat. So, I do try to first uncover like what are some things they like to eat and then how we can incorporate some other things. Again, very simple, rice or potatoes. Like, why don't we try one of those in your meals and see how you feel? And this is usually for girls who are, I think, very averse to eating carbs. Um, and it can also be fruits too, right? But I try to get something that's really easy digesting and maybe they can make it taste good within their meals. But they'll also notice, oh, I kind of have a little more energy. I'm in a better mood and I don't feel as hangry. So they start to have a little bit more carbs in their meal, whether it's seriously like simply like rice or potatoes. I love rice because I can make an Asian bowl out of it, but like add some things and dress it up the way you like. And usually 9 times out of 10, my women are like, huh, it's so weird. Like, I feel so much better. And like, I'm not hungry and don't have cravings tonight. And like, I actually didn't need my coffee today. I wasn't like crashing tired in the afternoon.
That's so weird. And it seems so obvious to us, but I do understand it because there's been such a carb phobic centric for so long.
Yeah.
Um, and that the let me read this real quick. But the reset said no sugar, so in a different form. She also said eat potato. I want to address that real quick, if
Yes.
I may, because that's a great point. Let me read this so that people know what it says later. A nutritionist told me to eat bananas whenever I want and red grapes, but hold on, I got to scroll back down. It went, but the def reset said no sugar is sugar, different, just trying to clarify. Let me break this down. There has been this blanket statement across the board that sugar is bad. And correct me, if there's something where, you view it differently, because again, that's why there's a lot of coaches. But the fuel that your brain that primarily runs on is going to be glucose, i.e. a form of sugar. Your organs, for the most part, run on sugar. Those workouts that you want to get bigger and stronger, the thing that's fueling your muscles is glycogen, is glucose. Those things, I'm not going to go into monosaccharides, disaccharides. People don't need a science lesson here. If you want it, message me privately and we can go do biochemistry. But with that being said, sugar in absence of anything, in absence of a caloric surplus, cannot make you gain weight, if we're going from that route. But especially when it comes to fruits, when it comes to those things, nobody ever gained weight. Or typically speaking, most people are not going to feel worse after eating an apple or a
Right.
banana or a couple of berries or
Right.
watermelon. Because watermelon is one, especially down here in the South, I'm eating it. And I'm eating it with salt on it. And I'm going to get country and we're going to do work. And it's gonna get dirty. But it's there's no nutrients in that, and it's all sugar. First off, that's just not true. That the nutrients are what's giving it its color. Um, so and typically to finish addressing that one, when people say I'm gonna reset my body, you're not a Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Right.
not a computer.
And this is where, again, depending on your history, if you have a health condition that really needs specificity, okay, then you might need some like higher level support. But again, if you are just starting out, or maybe you haven't been consistent for a little bit, you're working with a coach, chances are you can benefit from the basics and really the different types of fruits, or only having this fruit and nothing else. I mean, it's usually not going to pan out very well for you. And I just had this discussion with another gal. Don't be afraid of your fruits. I'm going for timely, balanced meals, maybe a pre-workout snack. It's okay to have a banana. If there are fruits that hurt you and maybe like cause some stomach pain, let's talk about it. But otherwise, you know, don't be afraid of eating fruits. I think that's like some other really big weird one I've been hearing a lot recently, but people are afraid of eating real foods, and it just should not simply be that way. And you'll know too, like if you're not feeling well from eating something, again, this is just like the power of the basics. Like go back to what you know and how you feel, and let's go off of how you're feeling with your foods without enough foods. But I'm going to tell you right now, like you should not be afraid of sugar and fruits. It's when you like go and overconsume them and then you might feel like crap. Okay, like let's talk about that. But go and eat the fruits, have some pre-workout snacks, and we can kind of like go from there. So again, it's like simplify things so much with my clients.
100%. And to hit that, and then we'll wrap it up here in a second. But so often, and I'm sure you've seen this, you kind of alluded to it earlier, when folks, especially, again, keeping it basics, we're not going to specifics here. So if somebody's different, message either one of us or both of us privately or together, whichever.
Definitely.
Very often, what we see when we see trash pandaitis at night is it's a new
Yep.
term, by the way. I took Latin for 4 years, so is I really did. I wanted to be a history teacher. Uh, um, is we see the carbohydrates too low. We see too great of a caloric deficit, and that's where we see that underconsume, binge. Because the fastest fuel for your brain is sugar. And if it's starving because it's not getting the calories and nutrients as well, that's why those whole foods, because there's satiated and satisfied, they're two different things. It's just going to scream sugar because it just needs some sort of attention. I like to phrase it like a relationship. If
Mm-hmm.
you're in a relationship with your husband and he's giving you your love languages that you need, you're probably never going to go like look for attention from another man. But if they never give you the love and attention in the way that you need it, you might go try to find it somewhere else. And if we
Right.
are starving our brain and our body and not giving it the love and attention it desires, then off we go. But just like in a relationship, even though we didn't get our needs met, we found it somewhere else. There's often guilt and shame around that.
Right.
And that's where that cycle goes.
Yeah. And it's vicious.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. And that's just, I love analogies and I have a long drawn up version of it,
Love
but
it.
it seems to really click very well for people. Like I'm not giving my body its love languages, which may be quality time for exercise, which may be gifts, which may be whole foods, right? Acts of service would be rest, massage, things like that. So your body has those too. Are you fulfilling all of those? And if not, maybe that's why it's not performing the way you need it to.
100%. And all those things, I love that analogy. That was so good because a lot of people knew or know the love languages. That's cool with health and fitness wise. But man, it's just if you start listening to your body, you're gonna see the signs and symptoms as just like feedback that you need to go and address things. And it's through lifestyle and nutrition. It's just we all are very busy living our lives and we don't pay attention to it. So when you work with a coach or someone, they kind of bring you back down. They give you some specifics to kind of be like, oh, like that makes sense. And then it clicks. And then it becomes a part of your new routine.
Love it. Well, tell me what I know you have this going. Will you share what you have going on? Because you know I love that
Yeah.
company. I think you're awesome. Like, what's going on?
This week I have joined Merrick. I'm super pumped, the telehealth company, if you haven't seen or anything about them, but health optimization, all things health and wellness. I'm going to be a health coach, so I get to continue nerding out with the blood work side of things, but still supporting clients, on their health and wellness journeys. But really getting in there and at least like blood work again. You can see the foundation. We can order all the fun things, and then from there, just support people, but also be acting as a liaison between my clients and doctors. So I like it because in America, you probably hopefully have health insurance, so at least you know you have things covered for emergencies. But if you don't, at least be doing your due diligence with being preventive, optimizing yourself, and this is what we do. So we come in with a different lens, different markers, if you will. The whole normal isn't optimal phrase that is becoming more and more popular, so important. So I get in and I can help people. Chances are you're probably getting told you're fine from your normal doctor, and we're going to come in and actually help you and probably give you a better plan for yourself and whatever your goals are.
I can personally testify they're incredible. Michael, if you watch this later, no, I'm not going to cheat on you and go over to her. And Adam, I'm not going anywhere, dude. I mean, I was very blessed to get Adam as my doctor. So, which I mean, is there better? Like seriously. But that is something so powerful. Like I recently had a client who was tired all the time. I was like, let's get a sleep study. I want to see your blood work. What's your vitamin D? Well, he said that my test levels were within normal range. Well, do you mind if I look at them? Well, they were 305, and he's 32 years old. That is technically within normal ranges, but it's awful.
Right. And if he's not feeling well,
like I need you like 2.5 times that, bud.
Right. Yeah. So your doctor and your normal doctor usually isn't going to say anything about it. I think the new FDA regulation is to qualify for TRT. I believe it's like 300. If you're below that, I think they won't look at you again. They think it's normal, you're fine, and that's where we come in. So I'm just so excited because we're literally changing people's like trajectory of their lives, and I wish only that it was known more. I think of how many people and friends could have saved themselves. It's like very near and dear to my heart. So I really feel like we get to be at the front lines, like literally helping people live longer and better. So I'm super passionate. And then I have, oh my God, the company culture, like we got to meet some cool people back in November. So I'm like living my best, like functional health, team, corporate, but like culture vibes. It's like all the things.
It's so good. It's so cool. Well, you mentioned, because I'm all about shameless plugging. We met at the Silverback Summit. Allie and I just talked today. She jumped on. So if you don't know Allie Gilbert, she's incredible. She's one of the most real, authentic people I've ever met in my life. She may not be for you. That's okay. She's our people. You also mentioned Merrick Health, huge supporters. Please go check them out. Another summit that's coming up is the Real Coaches Summit. I met Aram at the Silverback Summit, and so that's going to be in March. If you don't know 4 Weeks to the Beach, guys, go check him out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be he just asked me if I would speak on the virtual summit beforehand.
Oh, cool.
Which is very cool. So we'll be speaking about identity and how that may be holding clients back from getting the results they want. And you mentioned Sam Miller Science. Who in the heck is that?
Yeah, he will also be at Real Coaches Summit. I believe the first day I'm trying to remember, last year he spoke at it as well, and Real Coaches Summit, I'll be there too this year. So Aram's awesome, and for anyone who is in the coaching space, health expert, to continue your education in functional health, Sam Miller Science is your guy. That's where I actually found him with his podcast back in the day. So now I'm the fangirl turned girlfriend, but he is all things functional health and continuing education and mentorship. So lots of functional health and holistic focuses, all things basically with all the peeps in our group.
It's a pretty cool, and I'm honored that you gave me your time. It's a a lot of people with a lot of different specialties that all come together to create this incredible thing. And y'all, if you don't know Sam Miller Science, they're really is not anybody better at what he does. The guy is brilliant. But more importantly to me, just a good dude that really cares. Truly about the people he works with, the coaches he helps. And, I'm going to end up being a client of his. So if y'all don't know him, check his podcast out. I love shameless plugging people. How can people find you?
Me? Well, here I am right here on Instagram.
When this goes on YouTube, how can they find you?
Pretty much, I am most active though here on Instagram and LinkedIn actually. And then I will be part of the ranks with Merrick Health. So I'm looking to network honestly and just get the good word out of functional health more because I think like big things are coming for the health space and people actually being empowered to take control of living better.
Oh, God, that's such a good word. And one more time for everybody, what is your handle on Instagram?
I am KMac Fitness.
Awesome. And if you use the hashtag Trash Pandas, you'll see that as well. I I did not realize I was going to see both of y'all in March, so I will see you in like just over a month.
Yeah.
So very excited about that. And thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time. Truly.
I super appreciate it. And obviously, like, slide into my DMs if you guys had questions because I saw there were a couple things in here about nutrition and such. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And for the second time on these lives, I get to say this. Y'all heard her slide into her DMs.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.